Hello, my name is Debbie, Alligator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 18. Today is Wednesday, September 15th, 2021. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, but a little bit about what I'm reading and watching and life thrown in. It's been about 2 weeks since my last video, and for those of you who are returning viewers, you'll notice that I don't have my sling on anymore. I went to the doctor the day after my last video. He said everything was looking much better and I didn't need to wear the sling anymore, and more importantly, I was able to drive. So I'm really excited to have that independence again. My husband was wonderful, driving me wherever I needed to go, but I still like to have the freedom of not relying on him and interrupting his schedule. Also, speaking of my husband, today is the 9th anniversary of him becoming a U.S. citizen. He is originally from the UK, and when we first got married, we both were in our careers that actually made us live in a number of different places. And we decided, we didn't know where we were going to end up, and we decided that if we ended up in the United States or in the UK, that we would do whatever paperwork we needed to do to make sure that we were legally in those countries and able to work if we wanted to, but that we weren't going to sort of put pressure on the other one to become a citizen of either one of those countries. It ended up that we decided that the US would become our home. So my husband got his green card. We did everything properly. And once he got his green card, he said, you know what? I want to become a US citizen. And so, you know, for those of you who have been involved in immigration procedures, nothing is quick, but he was able, after 3 years of getting his green card, he was eligible to become a US citizen. And so we filed all the paperwork and he did what he needed to, and his swearing in ceremony was 9 years ago today. So congratulations to my husband, and it's been quite a ride, and I'm hoping we've been married for 18 years, and I'm hoping for many, many more years of happiness. We've now settled permanently in Florida. So moving on to the cross stitch, I want to start with the Under 1000 Subs Club. I'd like to shout out Elaine, who is Ellie Welly Stitcher. She is based in the UK, and she has a variety of projects, but like me, she does a lot of full coverage. For those of you who have watched my videos, you know I probably spend about 75% of my time working on full coverage pieces, and I always feel kinship with other stitchers who do a lot of full coverage as well. And Elaine has so many beautiful projects that she's working on. She's a delight to watch. For those of you in the UK as well, she's helping to organize a retreat in the UK. So if you're interested in all on that, go over and check out her channel. It will be linked below, but it's Ellie Welly Stitcher. So moving on to my own stitching. First thing I want to show you is I have a finish, so I'm very excited about it. It's not a huge finish, but it's a finish nonetheless. So this is Apple Sampler. It's from a Just Cross Stitch Country Crafts issue from the mid-90s. You can sort of see it has that sort of vibe of sort of the vintage vibe, as I like to call it. So basically, I mean, it is a sampler. It's got the alphabet and all of that. Obviously, it's not a reproduction sampler. And I just did it. This is a 16 count aida that when I started this about a year ago, it was in my stash. And I just basically all of the called for colors. And there was another sort of row in this chart of 3 apples with the names of the apples, and I made a decision very early on that I wasn't going to stitch the names because it didn't mean anything to me, because they're apples that I've never even heard of, let alone that I don't eat. If I can't get them, I don't eat them. But when I started stitching the apples, they didn't even look really good. So I decided just to not do that. And so, but you know, I do like the rest of the elements. I kind of wish you can see these apples. They're a little bit oranger, and the colors are a little bit starker than I would have picked on my own. Not picked on my own because I'm not a designer, but I would have probably preferred a little bit more subtle shading in the apples. But if I get up close, you can probably see a little bit better. But nonetheless, this was a lot of fun to stitch, and but I'm also happy that I am finished with it. I have no idea how I'm going to make it a fully finished object in FFO. I will cross that bridge when I get to the point when I start FFOing things. But here it is one more time. And I'll reference this again. So as many of you know, I love to play the various games on Facebook that deal with cross stitch. And there's usually one that sort of every week or so stands out and sort of drives a lot of my stitching, although I try and double dip as many things as possible. So what I'm going to do is show you projects in the order that I did it for the Riff Off in No New Starts 2021, but I will tell you sort of how I was using them elsewhere. So the first piece that I worked on for that was Let Freedom Ring by Lila's Studio. So we had to start with a project that was that had the word school, and I don't really have anything that has school. I was not a teacher. I did not work in academia. I don't have kids, so obviously I don't send them to school. But I decided to link this to school because, again, this is about America's independence, and this is Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, and I said that all American kids learn about Independence Day and the Liberty Bell. So that was my link. So we had to do 200 stitches in each project. So basically what I did was I just I filled in this flower here and then pulled down and did some of the leaves. This project is going to get a lot of love starting after this video, because it is my piece for Crystal Academy, my focus piece for the current spell that we are learning. So I'm hoping to sort of fill in this space here and bring it down as well. So that is Let Freedom Ring. Oh, and I'll also hold it up while I tell you about one more game that I'm playing in the monthly magazine cross stitch challenge. And I always forget the order of those words, but all those words are in it. They're doing what they call AB Singo this month, which is a bingo board. You arbitrarily place 25 letters. We're not doing S into a bingo board. And then every day, Carolyn, the moderator, calls a letter, and you can stitch on it that day, or you can stitch on it whenever, as long as you, by the end of the month, have it done. So all the letters that you have done by the end of the month, that will, I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. That will allow us to determine how many bingos that you get. So I believe this is R for Let Freedom Ring. In the No New Starts, the Riff Off, in addition to linking all of your projects as you work on them, there were also certain bonus items. And one of those bonus items was a teddy bear. So I was determined to do projects with teddy bears. So there are a few figures in Let Freedom Ring that have hats on it. So I linked it to these two little cute bears here. And I said, because this bear is wearing a hat, and I got to do my teddy bears. So I put in my 200 stitches, which basically meant I worked on the little bear here. I then put in another 100 stitches yesterday because the letter C was called, and so C for Caroline. So I put in some white stitches here. This is a really quick, easy stitch. That's a lot of fun to work on. But it's just not one that I gravitate to. Again, as I said earlier on, I really do love my full coverage, and at least to me, the bigger the better sometimes. So even like Let Freedom Ring, even though it's not full coverage, it still fits in the world of that. Big, whatever project you want it to be, awesome, amazing, big ass project, whatever you want it to be, whatever that means to you, I do a lot of them. So then I moved on to Cats in the Toy Box, and my link was teddy bear. So there's a koala bear there. I think that's the only teddy bear in there. But I said, okay, I'm going to link it to that. This is also my focus piece, extra credit in Crystal Academy, my focus for Semi-Sane Stitchers. I use it to build the cabins and magical stitches. I just pull it out for almost everything. So this is where I am now. I've been starting to pull down, these are the stripes in the wallpaper, and pulling down the side here. And I also then worked a little bit on this kitty in here. This is one of my larger projects. I think it has about 150,000 stitches, so it's not something that will get done anytime soon, but I love working on it. I love cats, and so it's a lot of fun. So that's Cats in the Toy Box. And then, because there was a cat in Cats in the Toy Box, I linked it next with Midnight Vigil. This is from Heaven and Earth Designs. This is artwork by Lisa Parker. This is the mini version of it. And this is where I am now. Sorry, there's a piece of fuzz on it. This is where I am now. So basically I've been pulling colors and just doing them here. So it's a lot of gray. And that's part of the reason why I chose to do a mini on this project. As many of you know, mini Heaven and Earth Designs doesn't mean that it is small. It just means it's smaller than sort of as the original artwork was charted. And that's because I just didn't want to, you know, there was so much black and gray in this. I love the picture, but I knew if I had to do 200,000 stitches of black and gray, I would go, you know, want to stop working on this project. And so, but I just love how the definition is coming out. You can obviously see the negative space of the moon. You can start to see this is where the window will come in. And so obviously the curtains are coming in really nicely. And so this is Midnight Vigil. And you can see there's a moon. So that linked it to my next project, which was White Owl by Artecy. There's a moon. And here's where I am now. So I put all my stitches into the moon, not a requirement for the riff off, but for, in addition to A.B. Singo for the Magazine Monthly Cross Stitch Challenge, there's also an acrostic that you can do, and I honestly do not remember what the word is for this month, but I know I put down that I wanted to do to complete this moon as one of my letters in the acrostic. I sort of went back, and after I put that down and started working on it, I realized there's like probably 1,500 stitches in that moon. So I will continue to give this project some love, and I'll talk about a little bit more how I'm going to do it, but whether or not I actually get the moon done by the end of September probably is going to be a question mark, just because a lot of things that I'm trying to accomplish this month, and often it's the acrostic that doesn't give all the love it deserves. But I'd like my acrostic to be aspirational, because if I do accomplish any of the letters, I feel that I've really met a goal, and not just, I put a couple hundred stitches into something that I was going to do anyhow. So as White Owl obviously had a bird in it, and I connected it to Simple Little Big Love by Alexandra Adelaide Needle Arts. And this has also happened to be my Whip Go piece, and so I need to put 1,000 stitches in it this month. And also, I believe the letter N was drawn for A.B. Singo, and so this was my N piece from Needle Arts. So here's where it is now. I basically outlined a few more of these feathers sort of coming up here, and then did all the fill-in there, as well as a little bit here, and the fill-in here too. So I, just because I always, despite the fact that it's counted cross stitch, sometimes I don't count correctly, even though it's probably, I'm counting to 6 or something like that. And I sometimes lose my place when I'm doing these feathers. And obviously it's important to get the outline done correctly, but once I do get the outline done, then the fill-in just flies, because I don't have to look at the chart anymore. I know exactly where I'm supposed to fill in, and it goes really easily. And doing the feathers themselves has been a lot of fun, because you're staring at the pattern, and because it's not just the outline of the feathers, but it's sort of these little internal motifs as well. And sometimes I look and I'm like, that doesn't really make sense. And then all of a sudden it just comes together, and you see the pattern come to life when I'm doing the feathers, especially with the center motifs. So that has been a lot of fun as well. I also wanted to show you something that I talked about in my last video, where I sort of have changed how I'm stitching. And I don't know how well it's going to appear here in the bird. You can see it a little bit. You can kind of see a contrast about how these stitches look, and it's not really going to focus, how the stitches look at the bottom, and they somehow are coming up a little bit darker, which is not really, because it's all the same color, versus here. But that's how the light is reflecting off of it. The reality is the stitches that are darker are actually much more uniform than the stitches up here. So I'm not going to go into again about how I changed my stitching. If you're interested in that, you can go look at the previous video. But it basically, my stitches now are pulling all in the same way, whereas before I was doing single X's going in one direction and then single X's going in the back, and it was pulling my fabric in different directions. So that was Simple Little Big Love by Alexandra Adelaide Needle Arts. the next piece that I want to show you, so linking to that, that was in the shape of a heart, if you saw. And so I pulled out Heaven and Earth Designs, Little Cake Shop artwork by Aimee Stewart. And if you look very carefully at the chairs, they have hearts in their back, on the backs of the chairs. So you're probably not going to be able to see much progress, even though I probably put in over 1,000 stitches on this. It was also for Crystal Academy. I think this was the piece that was my focus piece last week. And what I started to do was I was pulling out sort of colors in this window, but because there is quite a bit of white and creams and things like that, they are a little bit hard to see. And then a lot of times they would repeat here. Occasionally they also would come up in the molding on the ceiling. But I'm making really good progress on this. I believe I'm over 4% done, which given this has over 350,000 stitches, is actually quite a bit of stitching. So really enjoying working on this one as well. Obviously I'm getting into a lot more confetti. It is the max color version. So especially when you get to that window, there's a lot of confetti and it slows me down. But for me, the confetti in a project like this just helps to accentuate the details and really helps bring it to life. So linking to that, I had to just like that one. In the past I've done like striped wallpaper and easy to link it. Sometimes I would link it to food, but the other piece I had with food was my apple sampler, and I had already finished that. So I said, okay, there was words, and there are some words like the word bakery and other things that are part of the design. So I said, okay, I'm going to link it to Stars Bright from Lindy Stitches. And I also had this for A.B. Singo. The letter X got called. Yes, we all have X's because they're cross stitched, but I didn't want to use that. So I said this piece had a lot that needed to be X'd out, also frogged out, ripped out, whatever word you want to call it. And so I did my 200 stitches for the riff off, and then which also then covered what I need to do for A.B. Singo. So what I did was I started on the words, and this is a little bit of one of the birds' heads. It was also not a requirement, but I'm like, okay, I keep talking about I need to rip stuff out, and so I did rip out. Basically, I had like one of the quilt squares done here, and a little bit more stitching going down the side. And I just said, if I don't rip it out now, I'm going to just never pick up this project again, because I was so frustrated with myself. I love the project and the fabric and everything else, but I had accidentally, somewhere in the first quilt square that I did, I had miscounted, and so this is 2/2, but I think I did like either went over like up 2, but then only over 1 or something, one of those mistakes. And it was getting noticeable with the quilt squares that they weren't going to line up properly. So I just, realized I had done a lot more here. So rather than trying to fix it, I just said, okay, I'm leaving all of this here, and then I will rip this out here. Also was a lesson that I apparently do secure my stitches really well. Sometimes I think I don't do it well enough, but it was really hard to get those stitches out. So I guess yay to me, that at least I'm doing that well. I also had been missing this color in the center here, and I finally said, this is, even Stephanie says in the pattern, this is a great thing to go into your stash and just pull what you have. And I originally had just ordered the call for colors, and I hadn't gotten all of them, but for some reason I didn't have this pink, so I'm like, I'm going to follow her instructions. I want something similar, and I can either just pull out the DMC, but let me see if I have any overdyed that sort of comes close to it. And I went and pulled it and looked at the color name, and it actually was the color that I was missing. So I guess I never put it into the project bag when I first started this project. So my stash dive attempt only fixed the problem that I myself had created. But anyhow, now I'm back to loving this one again. Now that I have pulled out what I wasn't staring at me in the face anymore about the mistakes that I have. So I will probably be more inclined to pick this up again in the future. And then I said there, honestly, I don't remember what my link was, but the next piece that I linked it to was Hawk Run Hollow. And I can't remember if I said there may have been a bird or something like that. But I really wanted to pull Hawk Run Hollow in because a couple of the other bonus items were in here. Fish was a bonus item, and then a couple of the blocks, like this block and this block, both have fish. And so I wanted to pull those in. We also got bonus items like for the letter P. So I actually, in Stars Bright, the word open is on there. So the P was there, and April has a P on it. So I just pulled it out. I am working down on this piece. And so I've done January and April, and this is the July piece. So basically I pulled out this color here, and so that was wore July, the little flag, and then some of the clothing of the people who are watching the fireworks. So that's where I am now. And then the final piece that I did for the riff off, because I was trying to get to 10, was I did Winter Wonderland, and my link was, the ice rink, because obviously they're skating here. And also there's a ice rink in the February block of Hawk Run Hollow. This one also I wanted to pull out because, where is it? There's a baby right there, and baby was one of the bonus items that we could get. This is also for the Magazine Monthly Cross Stitch Challenge. The theme this month is fun and games, and they're all having a good time. So I managed to get in 200 stitches or so. Basically, this is 729. So what I actually had to do was go back up in the bow. All those little yellow dots that are in the bow, I had not done. So I went in and had and put those in, and then worked a little bit on the frame of the building there. So my goal for this is about 500 stitches. I've gotten a little over 200, so this will be coming out later in the month so that I can finish my goal for this. So that is all for the riff off. I've got quite a few other projects that I worked on, and I will tell you how I've linked them all. So I very rarely am just diving into what I have and working on it. I always am trying to meet some goal that I have set for myself. It just keeps things fun for me. So this is the only project this is the last project that I had in my, that was started that I had not touched this year. So this is from Beth Twist, and this is a horrible printout. This is a freebie that she did last year after the murder of George Floyd. And there was a push amongst stitchers to have more diversity and inclusion. And so this is a freebie from Beth Twist from Heartstring Samplery. She did 3 different colorways for this. So this is the same pattern, just in different colorways. But I decided to do it on a gray fabric. It's called Dapple. I don't know who the dyer is. And because of the colorway that she had, none of the colors that she had for the main letters. So I just pulled out, this is, I don't know if it's 3808 or something like that from DMC, but it's just your standard DMC. There are a few overdyes in this, but they're not. I think like the flowers might have overdyed in some of the people here. So I needed to put 200 stitches in for the riff off, and so I think I did the word R and maybe the letter A and maybe a little bit few more of these smaller words. I am hoping that I will pull this out in the second half of September for 2 reasons. One, in the No New Starts 2021, we have the birthday stitch-alongs. The person wants to consider the lilies. I don't have that started, so I'm not going to work on that one. But they also say, hey, if you have anything by the designer, why don't you do it? So I do have his eyes on the sparrow, but I do have probably 1,000 stitches into that. It's a huge project, so it's something that's going to take quite a while. And I could work on that, but I'm still looking for one of the colors I need, and it's the logical one to do. But then also because, again, 1,000 stitches in this will get me really, really close to where I need to be to get very close to a finish on this. So I will consider doing that. And so the riff off finished about a week ago, maybe 5 days ago or so. But also on top of that, I am doing the domino effect in semi-sane stitches. And so I have a way to come back to this, and it will be 1,000 stitches that I need to put into that. I think I've done up to 700 on, I think my last project was was Simple Little Big Love, the one on blue fabric. And so I will have to link that to my next project, but I have a plan. So other projects that I worked on, this is a Mill Hill kit, Santa's Treats. It's a small little kit, doing it on perforated paper. Here's where it is. So basically, I may have worked a little bit on the marshmallows here, and then I was working on the mug. So I joined a Facebook group called, it's called So You Think You Can Stitch, and we are doing the amazing race. And sometimes the way that she has set it up, and she's brilliant, the way that she set it up, sometimes you're just going for stitches, and sometimes you are going for a theme. And if you have the theme, great. And if you, but if you don't, then you just have to do penalty stitches. So this came out twice. I don't remember the first reason why I brought it out, but then the second reason why, I think you had to stitch on something that had beads in it. You did not have to do the beads. So that's why this came out, because obviously there will be a lot of beads throughout this project. It is called Buttons and Beads. And then, okay, I did that, and I was about to put it away, and then I saw that we also then had something where we had to stitch on. It was called like Coffee or Safari, and coffee was any hot beverage. So then I put another 100 stitches to meet that. I felt very vindicated in some way because I bought this kit about a year ago. I bought it for Crystal Academy because there was a prompt that was stitch 300 stitches of beads. And I didn't have, I had my mirror, but I wasn't anywhere close. So I thought, oh, I'll just buy this kit and stitch up these beads really quickly. Stitch it up really quickly. Of course, then you look at it and you're like, how many, there's thousands of stitches before you even get to the point where you can put the beads on. But then also by the time I got the kit, my teammates were great, and they already had gotten taken care of what needed to be taken care of, so I didn't need to do it. So I just started it at the end of the year, and sort of always have had it in reserve in case that ever comes up. So finally it came up that I needed something with beads. Now obviously I could have worked in my mirabilia, but I just chose to pull this out and do a little bit more on it. This does stitch up very quickly, and in fact much more quickly than my mirabilia. So next project I want to show you, this is the Green Dancer. I think I mentioned last time that in addition to being for Crystal Academy, I also was using it at the same time for Magical Stitches, and I needed to put in more stitches for both of those. So here is where it is now. Basically, I just most of the colors I was working on sort of that dancer in the middle. I also discovered I probably have a little mistake here. I don't think it's huge, and I could probably fudge around it, but what I've been doing, instead of figuring out where my mistake was and pulling out stitches that were a problem, I'm just building around it, and then I sort of trap it in the middle, and I'll get to the point if I need to do it. But it's 2 shades of green, so as long as it doesn't look too different, I may just go ahead and leave it. This is, after all, an impressionist painting, and it's not the stark detail that you might have in some other pieces that are based on artwork. So this will definitely come out for at least another 100 stitches, because for AB Singo, the letter D was drawn a couple of days ago. I haven't put the 100 stitches in here yet, but I will do so. I am behind on that. I'm about 4 or 5 days behind because I was so desperate to finish what I was working on for the Crazy Domino effect. Okay, the next piece I worked on, and I only put in about 100 stitches or so. This is Cozy Cardinals from Just Cross Stitch, and this came out because the letter E was called, and I said this has an evergreen. You can see the evergreen branches there, but I haven't gotten to it here. So I put in 100 stitches just into this yellow cardinal. I also have on my acrostic, I would like to get this cardinal finished by the end of the month. I totally think it's doable as long as I just make time for myself to pull this out. And then, as I mentioned, my mirabilia. This is Portrait of Veronica. I should probably be saying this until the end of time. I'm still working on her skin. I chose to do it 1/1. I don't regret that decision, but she has a lot of skin. But basically I think I've finished her forearm here and a lot of her chest. So I just have a little bit more of her chest here and then a little bit more on her upper arm area. And then I will be done with this part, and then I can start working on her dress a little bit. At that point, it'll be time to move the Q-snap, and then I will do her other arm, and then let the fun continue. Another piece I pulled out, this is O Joyous Day by Blackbird Design. This was for A.B. Singo. The letter Z came up, and I said there is a zigzag in it, so that's why I pulled this one out. And basically what I worked on, I know I showed this just in my last video as well, but basically I filled in this flower. You can see it really well. There is an eyelet stitch there, and I filled in the center of this one and did the buds here. I think I said, and that's all I need to do to finish this flower. I forgot that there are actually leaves on this flower. Like this is the first flower, you can see the leaves here. They're the same on this flower, so I still need to do it. But nonetheless, I do enjoy working on this, and it will definitely be pulled out sometime in the near future. So my goal is really to get this first row finished by the end of the year, and that's the only thing that's preventing me from finishing it. So I will meet that goal at some point. Next piece I want to show you is Artecy's High Intensity. This is the cropped version. The letter J, obviously that's a jaguar, so I pulled this out and had to put 100 stitches in. At the same time, and I think this was the first letter that was called, so on September 1st. Also in the Cross Stitch Frog Busters, they had sort of, I don't know if it was a pop-up event, but they had an event, and that's just a group that's like to encourage you to stitch. And sometimes they'll have a theme, sometimes they won't. We don't have to participate in any or all of the events, but this one it was no rhyme or reason, and it was stitch on whatever you want for this, so whatever you choose to do. They said, but if it's something that doesn't have a word that rhymes with it, it can fit in the theme. So there was no bonus for doing it, but I said, you know what, I'm working on a jaguar. I can't think of anything in English that rhymes with that, so I put in about 500 stitches on this. So here's where I am now. Basically, I've been pulling colors from down here, and then wherever they appear in the rest of the pattern, I just do really want to get this part starting to get it filled in. But then certain points, I'm just like, I'm using Pattern Keeper, so it's easy to find where the stitches are, but sometimes block stitching is fun too. So then I just pulled out the black and worked on the spots sort of coming into here. So this is pretty obvious. This is the tail of the jaguar, but then this is sort of his leg coming down here that's getting a little bit more definition. Was happy to have a chance to work on this. And then the last piece I'm going to show you, you can see I worked on a lot, is Old World Map by Artecy. I show this almost every video. Did not work on this as much as I usually do. Usually I pull this out and work on it. This is the first project that I work on every morning before I get into sort of more intense stitching. But because of A.B. Singo and the need to already pull out and do 100 stitches and just some other goals, that didn't happen. So I deliberately, for magical stitches, said, you know what, either I couldn't easily match or I didn't want to match. And so they say if you don't want to do the prompt, you can always just put in a matching number into your oldest project, and this is. So here's where I am now. Basically, I worked in this area, so a lot of this this red color is coming out. I think this is 349, but then there was some dark brown and black that came in here, and then hard to see up there, but also some 819, so some very pale pink, just stitches that I had never gotten around to doing. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to take care of them so I don't have to go back and deal with them later. So that's where I stand on this. Again, if I do try and work on this every, if not every day, I want to make it a little bit of a focus, simply because it is my oldest project and it's going to take a long time. I think I'm somewhere between 8 and 9% right now on this, so it's not something that's going to move super quickly, but it's just something I do like it. I like history, I like travel, so it just sort of fits into everything that I like to do. Also, for supernatural stitches, we're at the point in the show where almost every week an angel of some sort appears, and so often we have, often I'll say, okay, I'm going to do this for angels. This week, you could also stitch on something that depicts the earth. I said a globe is definitely earth. And the moderator actually commented, said, I was hoping this one would come out. It comes out every week, but I was happy to do it for Angel was still an option, but I pulled it out for Earth. I'm also using this for No New Starts, for their astrological signs. Right now, Virgo, I guess, is an Earth sign, so I said this is the Earth. So I'm getting stitches in for that as well. So that is all the stitching I have to show you. I have gotten a few questions both in my video as well as from stitchy friends and other in groups. How do I keep a track of everything that I'm doing? And the real answer is sometimes I don't. But basically what I try and do is I know there are certain groups that are going to drive my stitching. Crystal Academy is one that every week there's a focus piece, and I know if I'm going to, we have 2 weeks to do it, but I like to do it in the first week, that I need to get 750 stitches into that project. And that project was one I picked, I think, back in May or June, so I don't have to think about it. It's been chosen for me. If I can double dip that with other things, great. But I do try and work on that. Magical Stitches sometimes as well has prompts on certain things, and I work there. But everything else I try and tie in. So WhipGo, I know most of my projects I say, okay, 1,000 stitches is what I said I wanted to do. And so I say, okay, and a good example was Simple Little Big Love. I said I need 1,000 stitches into that. And so I am going to, find reasons to pull this in. And the Crazy Domino Effect was a great way to get, that was 700 stitches right there. I had to get into it. But I also have, so these are all Facebook groups, and wherever I need to post, I just save that. And a lot of them were just stitching for numbers. And so I have the post saved, and I say on my phone, great. And just hold on, I'm going to get my phone to show you. So in my attempt to pause the video, I actually stopped it. So hopefully I'll be able to splice these two videos together. But anyhow, this is my phone. I'm having to hold it at an odd angle so I don't get a ton of glare off of it. But basically, a lot of these are the various groups. So you can see that where it says Ravenclaw, that is for the Harry Potter group. This is from Supernatural Stitches, and just sort of going all the way down, you can see it. And so for the most part, I just basically say, okay, do my start post. I go down through each of those where they are saved, start it, and then when I finish my stitching and I want to post it, I basically say, okay, here's where I need to be. And that's how I keep a track of it. Crystal Academy, they do it through albums, but again, since that drives a lot of my stitching, I basically know that I need to work on that and to go into albums. And you know what? If I forget, I forget. If it's something that's really competitive and I'm on a team, my teammates will tell me that I've done something wrong. And and that's the great thing about these games, is that it's meant to, a lot of them are meant to be teamwork. And if you do something wrong, someone will tell you and help you to go along and make sure that your post is right. So I enjoy the games. Sometimes I do feel a little burnt out from them, and I think, okay, maybe I should drop a few of them so that not that they're causing me to do more stitching, but I feel like at times I am spending more time photographing and posting and trying to keep my numbers straight than I actually am stitching. But the reality is it's not that, and I enjoy the various teams that I'm on and the people in the teams, which is a big part of why I do it. So that is it for showing you what I have worked on and a little bit more about the games. I think I mentioned in my last video that I got a gift certificate for my birthday, and I was able to go to my local Nita workshop that's here in town. It's a very small store. It's not the best location, and I've heard that she's going to move. I shouldn't say location. Location is great, and she's moving to a new space that's close to that location. It's the actual space. It's really in more of an office space than a proper storefront. And so there's been, the door has to be locked, and that's, you know, a store you want people to be able to walk in freely and not feel like, you know, that they have to knock on a door when they're coming to visit. So I'm hoping that she will move soon. It's a 10-minute drive away from my house. So I went and used my gift certificate up. I bought a lot of threads. I'm not going to show them individually here, but I also picked up, this is a piece of fabric. It's called Winter White. It's from Seraphim. It's 36 count. I have never used Seraphim before, so I enjoy. I hope that I will enjoy working on it. It's you know, it's a fairly soft linen, but I'm hoping that I will enjoy using it. I do have this in mind for a certain project. I am in 3 Fabric of the Month clubs, and I tend to get fat quarters for that. And the project that I have this in mind for is won't fit on a fat quarter, so it's a fat half. So at some point I will do a kitted up parade for you and show you all the projects that I have kitted up, and then I'll show you how I intend to use this. I also bought some new patterns. So the first one is, this is Kathy Barrick, Nottingham. This was released at Expo, and it's my first Kathy Barrick that I have. I also got Moonlight Sampler from the Blue Flower. And I have quite a bit of the Blue Flower. She is one of my favorite designers. And, you know, even though I'm like, okay, I have enough, let's work on some of them before you know, buy more. But I just love this so much that I couldn't resist it, and I bought it. The next one that I have, I don't speak French, so Reflet de Soie. Reflections of Silk, I believe is what this is called. The company is called, and this is Louisa Barney, 1892. Sorry, I took my glasses off so you wouldn't have to glare, but I need them to read. But I'm sure you've seen this around in many places. I love the colors, and the samplers that they pull out are they're reproduction samplers, but they're different than a lot of the ones that you see from other designers. So I enjoy it, and I love the detail, like the cow and the other animals around this. And then the last one I got, this is another reproduction sampler, Christian Granger, 1839. And this is from Victorian Rose Needle Arts, and that is actually, so the woman who owns my local cross stitch store is the one who does these reproduction samplers. So I really wanted to make sure that I got something that she has charted, because I'm so excited that I have a needlework store in my town. I really want it to thrive and succeed, because she opened it a couple of months ago, but there had been another store that the woman had retired and closed it about a decade ago. And so since then, if I wanted to go to an actual needlework store, it was probably about a 45-minute to an hour drive away, which I know some of you live in states where there's not a needlework store anywhere near you beyond sort of the big box stores. You know, so perhaps I shouldn't complain about something that I have, again, an hour away. In the United States, an hour away is just not that far away. I know in some countries, an hour away, it's like you have to pack the whole car up for a long journey. The US, a lot of things are really spread out, and an hour isn't that far. And certainly in northern Florida, it's not that far. But nonetheless, I do want to support a local business, small business in my town. Having said that, I'm probably going to go to the one that's about an hour away over the weekend because I think they're having a sale. So I really will look forward to that. So that is all I have for the stitching. I do want to tell you about one show that I've been watching. It's on Hulu. It's called Only Murders in the Building, and it's a comedy. And it's got the lead actors are Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez. And it is a comedy, but it's done in a really clever way. And you have these 2 great comic actors, and then you have Selena Gomez, and she is absolutely holding her own in this. It is very, the building is based very loosely on the Dakota in New York City. If you have spent any time in New York City, you probably are familiar with that building. A lot of celebrities live there. John Lennon had lived there, and unfortunately he was killed outside that building. This TV show has nothing to do with John Lennon's death, but nonetheless, the building just has such history in New York, and this building sort of is modeled on that. And they make fun of it, so and they get a lot of sort of famous people in New York to appear in this show. So Sting has been in it, Tina Fey, and others that I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, it starts off that these three individuals who don't really know each other, they love a true crime podcast. And there is, like, I don't know if it's a fire alarm or something, but there's an emergency in the building, and everyone has to evacuate the building, and they're all listening to when this podcast is dropped. They all sort of, one of them grabs his laptop, and they all discover each other as they're waiting to go back in the building, and talking about their love of this podcast. When they go back in the building, they find out that someone has killed himself. But they decide that this person hasn't killed himself, that he was actually murdered. And while that in of itself is a sensitive topic, it's really less focused on that than it is sort of everything sort of leading up to it, and people not telling the truth, and but the reasons why they're not telling the truth have nothing to do with that situation. It's just people have a hard time being honest about their own life. Lots of great things, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. And it's on Hulu, but right now they're dropping an episode every week, so for us it feels like a regular serial. And the most recent episode dropped, for me it was last night, so September 14th, and we were almost disappointed because it was only a half hour long. Most of the time they're between 45 minutes and an hour, and that just to me shows how good a show is, that you are disappointed not because of the content, but because you want more of the content, and if you can't get all the way through it, you at least want to have, you want to feel sated after what you watched. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you if you stuck around this long, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to splice these two videos together. So until next time, thank you for watching. Feel free to leave a comment, and I hope you come back in a couple of weeks when I return. Bye-bye.